Hey everybody, welcome back to Matter of Facts. Today I'm going to do a short episode, hopefully short, on something I haven't talked about on the YouTube channel before. I've talked about on the podcast quite extensively, and I'll have all those links in the show notes so that you can take a look at them. But we're going to talk about not the things we use to make holes, not the things we use to stay in our life, but we're going to talk about a little bit of medical gear. Just go through these subjects really quick. I'm going to link you to some show notes that are going to cover these subjects in a lot more detail and have a lot of links if you want to purchase any of these things. But I personally recommend that everyone take it upon themselves to have a minimal amount of medical gear in their home, in their vehicle, on their person. It really is up to you how far into this you want to get, but there's a couple things I recommend that are really cheap, really simple to use. I can teach somebody how to use most of this stuff in about 30 seconds, and it saves lives. I mean, when I was in the military, we were required to carry some pretty basic stuff on us at all times because if you don't have that stuff in seconds count, somebody's going to have a bad day. But I think there's a good case to be made to have some of this in your vehicle, especially some of it in your home, just to hold somebody over until you get an ambulance on site. But let's get into the tabletop and we'll start breaking this down. I'll go through what I put together, what I recommend, what I use. Alright everybody, like I said, we're going to talk about this kit first, so I'm going to set this one off on the side. This is what I carry in my vehicle. This is honestly what I recommend everybody start with as far as trauma gear for the home. Right on the very top, we got a pair of nitrile gloves. This should be obvious, but it bears pointing out because a lot of people don't think about it. But don't think about if you're sticking your hands in your own blood, or God forbid your family's blood, but somebody else's blood. You happen across a car accident, perfect stranger, you don't know where they've been, you really ought to have a pair of gloves on hand so that you're not just sticking your fingers in the holes barehanded. Right underneath that is a RADS tourniquet. Now, this is my personal go-to. They're cheap, they're simple to use. I'm going to have to put together a video on this in the future of how to use it, just to kind of demonstrate, but if you're dying to know, there are videos out there that will beat me to the punch because it's been done before. But I favor these because they're cheap, they're simple. I can teach somebody how to use this in about 1 minute flat. And a tourniquet is a lifesaver. Whether you want to get this or a cat tourniquet or a SWAT tee, just please don't get those thin, stretchy little bands of elastic like the ones they use to take you to draw blood from you. That's not going to work for hemorrhage control. We need to get something a little bit more high speed than that. Now, the only other two items in this bag, and this is supposed to be really simple and really entry level, is an Israeli bandage, which is a big gauze pad with some canvas wrapped around it. The canvas tails are used to tie this underneath the affected limb, and the knot goes on top of the canvas pad. That gives you, that's not meant to be used as a tourniquet, and you have to be careful not to tie it so tight it becomes a tourniquet. But this gives you the ability to have an absorbent pad and a method of attaching it to the body all in one package, and as you can see, it's vacuum packed, so it's nice and durable and compact. And the last thing in here is Quick Clot. You could also use Celox or a variety of other things, but this is what I've gone to. This is a sponge with a chemical that's been impregnated by chemical that encourages coagulation. So think about places where a tourniquet doesn't do any good, like head wound, tourniquet around the neck, not a good idea. Think chest or stomach or shoulder, places you can't get a tourniquet. Tourniquets work great around limbs, but there's certain places you can't use them. This will go anywhere a tourniquet can't, and if you're dealing with a really nasty, ugly gash, this is going to be your best friend. If absolutely necessary, you could use this and put this on top of it to hold it and apply some pressure. But this will get the job done most of the time. The thing that bears pointing out about a chemical hemostat agent is if you put this into a wound, it's going to bind itself to the wound. You're going to the ER to get it removed. So nothing in here, understand, there's no Band-Aids and Tylenol in this. This is emergency medicine. This is what's going to kill you in 5 minutes. This stuff is not meant for bumps and bruises and the small little problems. Those are not life-threatening. They're annoying, but they're not life-threatening. This is for life-threatening injuries. And that's why I believe this is a good place to start because, the average household, you have Band-Aids and you have Tylenol, and if you don't, go get the stuff. But beyond that, most people think to themselves, if I had a serious injury, I'd go to the emergency room. Well, how far away is your local emergency room? How long does it take to get there? For me, I mean, I'm fortunate I live right around the corner from the hospital, but for some people, you might live 20, 30 minutes away, and the wrong kind of injury could kill you in 5 to 10 minutes. So you need to have some of this stuff on hand to keep the person alive long enough to get them to the hospital. That's the idea behind emergency medicine. But once you get past these items, and this is basic entry level. It doesn't seem that way, but this is, in my book, entry level. Once we get past this, we get to what I put together that stays on my plate carrier for home defense. And this is a step above this, but still pretty basic in my opinion. Now, when you open it up, the very first thing you're presented with is gloves, for obvious reason. You don't want to be touching people. This is really meant more for self-help, but if it's not self-help, if you're using this for somebody else, gloves are the very first thing that are going to pop up to the top because you don't want to be touching people bleeding. The very next things you're going to find are, what I tried to arrange this as far as like the easy stuff to get to is the most important stuff. So the very first things that pop out are another tourniquet, because if you need a tourniquet, you need a tourniquet. Chest seals, and a pair of trauma shears. Now these, if you have a wound and you need to get clothing off, these work really good. If you have a buddy you want to prank, these are really good for that too, but that's another video. This is a self-adhesive bandage that you would apply to the chest or the abdomen if you suspect you've punctured a lung. Think along the lines of bubbling, gurgling wounds on the chest where you have bubbles coming out. Now, if there's bubbles coming out, that means some gas is escaping the wound. Well, there aren't many places in the body where there should be gas except for the lungs. So if you have a wound in the chest or the abdomen that is actively bubbling and gurgling, you probably need to look at one of these. This is a Fox Seal. I believe Hyphen is the company that made these, but this is what was recommended to me by a military buddy, and that's what I threw in there. There are other options out there. Just search for chest seal. And again, I'm going to have a document linked in the show description that's going to have links for a lot of this stuff, so you can go pick it up real quick, or you at least have kind of a starting point to do your own research. And if anybody finds another product you prefer, reach out to me and let me know. I'd love to look at it, and I might agree or disagree, but let's talk it over. Everything beyond these first three things, which is tourniquet, chest seal, because if you have a wound that has perforated a lung, that's not something you have moments to mess around with to dig stuff out of here. You need to seal it up immediately. If you have an arterial bleed that's spurting, you need to deal with that immediately. That's why these three things pop out of this kit first. The next things are Cobin, which is a cohesive bandage. Think about like if any of y'all have ever used the self-adhesive ACE bandages, this is like its big nasty big brother. This stuff works well for sealing wounds. It works well for holding a dressing down. Works for all sorts of stuff. We have more Quick Clot, because Quick Clot is awesome. I don't even have to really explain that. We've already talked about it before, but this is more Quick Clot. We have a fistful of gauze pads and an abdominal pad to be used in addition to this. That way you have other methods of packing and sealing wounds. Should be pretty self-explanatory, but that all goes together. And then the last thing is another Israeli bandage, because these things are awesome and they seal wounds in places where other things won't. That is everything I keep in the trauma kit that stays on the chest rig, simply because this is all tailored towards gunshots, because this stays with the plate carrier that's in the home defense gear. And the idea is that if the plate carrier has to get put on and any of this stuff ever becomes needed, it's going to be because of gunshots, which is why I have picked the things I have. If you are in a different set of circumstances or preparing for a different set of circumstances, you might want to tailor your gear slightly differently. But the thing that's really important to realize is that, think about the things that are going to kill you the quickest. We're not talking about food and water. We're not talking about runaway fever, because those things all take time to get to the dangerous point. But things like an obstructed airway or an arterial bleed are going to become life-threatening very, very quickly. That's why bleeding control or hemorrhage control has been the focus of a lot of these kits, because that's the stuff that's going to kill you in 5 minutes. If I can get you to stop bleeding and I can keep you breathing, I can get you to an emergency room or I can get you to an ambulance and we can figure out what to do from there. But if I can't get the bleeding under control, you're not going to last that long. So I would recommend you take a look at what's here on the table, give it some thought, reach out to me, either leave comments on the video, reach out to me on Facebook, and let's have a discussion about it. There will be a link in the show description to a document that'll have links to a lot of this stuff and some more information on all of it. And if you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me. We're going to do more medical episodes in the future. I've already done a really big medical episode. That'll be in the show description on the podcast with my sister. And we might do some more work in the future on video. Definitely going to have a video together of how to use some of this stuff. But with the exception of the tourniquets, which I can use, all the rest of this stuff I'm going to have to get a duplicate of so I can actually open it up and show it to you, because I kind of need this stuff where it is. And once you open it up, you're done using it. But reach out to me if you have any questions. Let me know what you think. If I missed anything really obvious, mention it to me. I very well might reconsider what I have in here, because a lot of this stuff didn't show up in here overnight. It's been things I've put in over time as I've learned more and reconsidered some of my ideas. But don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it, get it out there. Help me to put the word out, and I'll talk to y'all next time, guys.